Hey everyone, talking about Vintage 84 by Dixit Zak. The notes in this fragrance are real Mysore Sandalwood from 1984. Mysore Sandalwood, at least the authentic kind, is very, very expensive, especially when it's literally like 40 years old. I guess is it like wine where it's aged, it's better? I assume so if they're making a big deal about it being older. But the other notes in this, it's weird because the Lucky Scent product page, I think, for example, says nothing but vintage, 1984 from the real certified by the government of Mysore, whatever, sandalwood. But then there's like a bunch of other notes listed. And sometimes there can be other notes listed. It doesn't mean that's an ingredient because it like brings out that type of the smell. But this one, sandalwood, doesn't bring out all these other things. So this is what else is actually in it, though the sandalwood is the focus. Bergamot, pink grapefruit, orange flower, rose, Damascus, Turkish Rose, Tuberose, ginger, vintage Mysore Sandalwood, plus a tincture fraction uses a fixative containing vanilla, Tonka Bean, and frankincense. So this is definitely not linear. Opens like really fresh, uplifting citrus that quickly segues into some powdery florals, but it doesn't get like indolic and super like old school or dated like powdery rose, or I don't like tuberose normally at all, or rose for that matter. And I don't get too much of that. It's very like kind of almost like lightly soapy powdery, but not offensive or anything, I think. And then there's like that frankincense lurking around the edges. The presence of the Mysore Sandalwood becomes stronger as the fragrance progresses, and more so until that's what it is when it dries down. To me, Mysore Sandalwood smells almost like a wheat field. It's weird because I thought I hated sandalwood, or that I didn't really like sandalwood, I thought, for a long time, but then I realized it really does smell so differently depending on which kinds. Like, I don't like Australian sandalwood. That's the kind of, I think, the more popular, typical sandalwood smell. But to me, yeah, I don't know if anybody else says this, but there's like a fresh wheat field, not weed. Weed would be too pungent. That Mysore Sandalwood smells like to me. This is very much a classic vintage type of scent profile, not because of the name, because that just means about the vintage part being the sandalwood being so 40 years old or whatever. But this is just like that kind of, I would say, I don't know, like 1930s to 1960s sort of era of type of vintage fragrances. I think it's perfectly fine, like nice quality. I think it smells good enough, but there are a lot of similar types of things with this sort of vintage scent profile. And by the way, I don't think it smells dated, just has that kind of scent profile. But there's a lot of stuff like this that's so much cheaper than the exorbitant price this is sold at. Very unisex, by the way, and low longevity and projection too. That's not a big deal for me, but I know that's something a lot of people care about. But the price for this is $480 for a 30 ml. That is very small. That's less than a third of the size of like kind of a standard regular full-size bottle. I'm not going to say that's overpriced in the sense of, oh, this is so inappropriate for the company to charge that, because the Mysore Sandalwood, especially if it's vintage and certified by the government and all that kind of stuff, is very expensive. So maybe that's not overpriced in terms of like the materials. I'm not at all saying that, but what I am saying is, to me, for the smell, just isolating the smell, not thinking about the materials or anything, just as in like what it smells like, no. I mean, you could easily get something like that for 100 ml size for less than a quarter of the price of this one for a 30 ml. So it's even, I think it's like $20 to even try a sample of this. I was able to get one for free, but yeah, I wouldn't recommend spending that 20. One of my favorite fragrances that has Mysore Sandalwood is the Paradam by Apotheker Tepe. And that is pricey, but not anywhere near this level of pricey. So yeah, good for what it is. Interesting, cool to get a chance to smell like such authentic, like real Mysore Sandalwood in such a pure way, but just way, way too overpriced. So for that reason, I do not recommend it.